Hello Year 7, it's Mrs. Reed here, and I hope that you have all had a really lovely half term. Welcome back to the classroom and back to English. I'm sorry that I can't be there with you today, but I have recorded our Mastery Monday lesson, and I will be back in the classroom on Thursday this week. So can you please make sure you've got your red Mastery Monday books in front of you? You're going to need them for this lesson. And you will also need a copy of the worksheet, and it should say Year 7 Mastery Monday at the top, with roughly three chunks of text, 3 different tasks. Make sure you've got one of them each, that you have a pen to write with, a ruler. You might want to have a different coloured pen for self-marking too, that's quite useful. And when you're ready, and you've got everything together, we're going to write Mastery Monday as our title, and copy down today's date. Can you do that now, please? Okay, so let's make a start on recapping some of our learning. We know in these sessions our aim is to really secure some of our spelling, punctuation and grammar skills for our writing in English to be really accurate. We're going to first spend 5 minutes completing this grid. So that means you're going to write down the number of the task in your margin and then answer the question. If you're not sure of the answer, that's okay. Okay, move on to the next one, but you want to aim to try and answer as many of these 9 questions as you can in those 5 minutes. Now our time is up, we're going to continue and we're actually going to go through and self-mark these. So this is where having a different coloured pen comes in handy, because you're going to check your answer. If you've got it right, give yourself a tick. If you got it wrong, okay, make sure that you put in the correct answer, please, in a different colour. Let's go. So, for question 1, it asked you which piece of punctuation goes before the conjunction but. The answer to that question was a comma. So well done if you got that one right. Number 2, where do I place a comma? Was it after a part that tells when or before a part that tells when? Okay, I can see that after a part that tells when or where actually is correct. So give yourself a tick if you got that one right and correct it if you didn't. Number 3 asks you to add a comma to this sentence. So you'd need to write out the sentence and then put in the comma in the correct place. It should say, although it was cold, comma, she did not wear a coat. Give yourself a tick if you got that one right. Number 4. Let's think about Greek mythology now. What is a Sisyphean task? So you might have said that a Sisyphean task was one that seemed to be endless or perhaps impossible to achieve. Give yourself a tick if you got that one right. What does hubris mean? We learned a lot about hubris in our last unit, and we talked about characters who were hubristic. That meant that they had excessive self-confidence or pride. Normally, they were so self-confident that led them to make a mistake or to be flawed that would lead to the character's downfall. Number 6. What was the king of the gods? That should say who. Who was the king of the gods and where did he live? So the answer here was Zeus, and well done if you got that part, and he lived on Mount Olympus. Okay. Next, is this the correct spelling of monkeys? You can see it's a plural word, so I can see why this person's tried to add an IES, but that's not the rule. The correct spelling is underneath, so check and correct. Number 8, is this the correct spelling? Yes, it is. We practiced this before when we looked at when we added an ing onto a word that already ended with an R. We listened to it. So it's likely that we're going to need to add a double letter because we're adding on an ing, an vowel suffix. And if we can hear the sound elongated in the middle, transferring, okay, we can hear that there's 2 R's needed there. Transfer and ring, not transferring, transferring. Okay, number 9. You're asked to move the part that tells when to the beginning. So your sentence should look like this with a capital A. After school, comma, she went to the doctor's, full stop. Check your answer now and give yourself a tick if you got that one right. You might want to give yourself an overall mark out of 9. Well done, everyone. So today's lesson is going to be thinking about paragraphs. But before we do that, it's always worthwhile recapping something that we've already covered. So last term, you were mastering how to punctuate sentences that told us when and where something happened. Remember the rule. If a sentence starts with when or where it happens, we must put a comma right after that part. I'm going to say that again, and then I want you to repeat that back. If a sentence begins with when or where it happens, you must put a comma after that part. 1, 2, 3, off you go. Okay, I'm going to leave it up to whoever is playing this recording to judge whether that was good enough. If we need to practice one more time, I'll say it again. If we start a sentence with when or where it happens, we must put a comma after that part. Okay, so let's look at this piece of text. Make sure you have a copy in front of you. There are some mistakes made in this text because the writer has forgotten to punctuate the sentences that tell when and where it happened correctly. Your job is to read the text through and then to add in the commas where they're missing. Let's have a look at the first paragraph together. Zane and Trevor walked along the gangway. As they approached the plane, Zane began to feel nervous. At the entrance to the plane, the air steward greeted them. I can see in that paragraph that there are 2 sentences that tell either when or where something happens. So I need to identify those parts and put a comma after them. Hands up if you can spot already where the first part that tells when or where is. Okay, so I'm going to show you now on my screen, and I'd like you then to do the same in your text. In the second sentence, as they approach the plane, I can see that this is a part that tells when. And that means that I need to put a comma after that part. That goes here. After they approached the plane, comma, Zane began to feel nervous. Now that's correct. Our next sentence has a part that tells where something happens. See if you can underline that part and then put a comma after it. Okay, it should say at the entrance of the plane. That's where something happens. So I'm going to put a comma after this part. Let's read it back. At the entrance to the plane, comma, the air steward greeted them, full stop. That's correct. So paragraph 1 there is now correct. I would like you to go through and fix up the rest of the paragraphs. Look for the sentences that start with when or where it happened and put a comma after that part. Pause the video and off you go. Now it's time to mark our work. So grab yourself a different colour pen and let's check your answers. Zane and Trevor walked along the gangway. As they approached the plane, comma, Zane began to feel nervous. Can you see I'm going to tick my answers as I go, and I'd like you to do the same in your work. If you've missed one, now is the chance to add it in. At the entrance to the plane, comma, the air steward greeted them. As they took their seats, comma, Trevor kept spouting facts about how rare plane crashes were. In his head, comma, Zane knew that this was true. His stomach seemed to have other ideas. Up ahead, comma, the safety demonstration began. Zayn began to feel less convinced that crashes were rare. He fastened his seatbelt across his lap. Once the announcement was over, he put his headphones in. It was going to be a long flight. Okay, so you should have identified and fixed up 6 commas in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 commas in total. So you can give yourself a mark out of 6. Well done. Okay, so on to some new learning. The rest of this lesson is going to focus on paragraphs. And there are some rules that we can apply that help us to realise and recognise when a new paragraph is needed. The first one is looking at speech. We've already practiced speech punctuation a couple of times in our mastery sessions. So now we need a new rule. Only one person can speak in each paragraph. If a new person speaks, start a new paragraph. I'm going to say that again, and then I'd like you to repeat it back. The rule. Only one person can speak in each paragraph. If a new person speaks, start a new paragraph. Over to you. 1, 2, 3. Good. Again, I'm going to let your teacher in the room judge whether we did that well enough. If we need to, we can practice one more time. Only one person can speak in each paragraph. If a new person speaks, start a new paragraph. Over to you. Well done. So we're now on to task 2. You're going to see this on your worksheet. This time we are going to use the letter P, like this, as a symbol of where a new paragraph needs to start. So for example, I could put a P at the beginning here because this is a new piece of text, so I'm obviously going to be starting a new paragraph. Cynthia took Matthew and Emily to get an ice cream. As we continue reading, we need to look for when each person speaks and apply the rule. So if there's a new speaker, we must need to use a new paragraph and can show that with the letter P. Let's look at the first one. Cynthia took Matthew and Emily to get an ice cream. On the way to the cafe, Cynthia asked, "What kind of ice cream do you each want?" After this, we can see we have a new speaker. Hands up if you can spot who speaks next. Tell the class the name of that person. Well done. We should have identified that Emily is a new speaker. So what must I do? Okay, I must put in a P to show a new paragraph goes here. So I'm going to read on from Emily and look at what she says. If I get to a new speaker though, I must put in a P to show a new paragraph should start. Over to you. Read through the rest of the text and put in where you think a new paragraph should begin. Off you go. Pause the video here. Okay, so let's just fix up our answers. It should look like this. We had a P at the beginning to show we've started a new paragraph. We had a P before Emily because we can see we have a new speaker. We had another paragraph start when Cynthia then talks. Another paragraph when Matthew talks, and we have to be careful here because Matthew is named here, but it's the he that refers back to Matthew, okay, that tells us the speaker. We should have another P because Matthew finishes speaking and Cynthia talks. And then finally, just as if he collapsed, I think the ice cream needs to wait. Let's find somewhere to rest, Cynthia said. So all the rest of it is Cynthia talking, so that is fine. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give yourself a mark out of 5, and well done.